Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for joining us for the session that we're running here. It's a program all day at the International Investors Lounge in the Insight stage. Thanks very much to everybody for joining us online, or if you're watching on demand, thanks very much for watching. This session is going to be around, I suppose, ESG, looking at the E and the S and the G, particularly looking also at decarbonisation and looking at that across the industry. So how we see that both from an association perspective, how we see it from a city perspective, how that plays into valuation, because that also fits in with our journal and platform Impact, which looks at both decarbonisation, social strategies, and how we're influencing the built environment with that. So for those who don't know me, my name's Richard Betts. I'm the publisher and co-founder of Real Asset Media, and Nicole Dines, who is sitting there, is the editor of Impact Journal. Let's start with 30-second interviews. Interviews? What am I talking about? Let's start with 30-second just introductions so that then everybody knows who everybody is. And Kathrin, let's start with you.
Yeah, good morning. I'm from Concular, German-based firm that is doing a lot to do the transition from a linear building sector to a circular construction, seen as the built environment that is already there, and the great amount of grey energy that is stored in there, and also the wisdom of former generations of architects, and also symbolic worth that is stored in there.
Great
to be
Paul,
here.
over to you.
My name is Paul Wessels. I'm co-founder and CEO of Blue Module, where we create ESG accounting software. We're the biggest provider of this kind of information to the Dutch banks. We provided information of 45,000 buildings last year, so ESG reporting for valuers. That's it.
Great, Joost.
Joost Leendertse, co-founder of VerusSol. We have, after years of research, developed a methodology. Therefore, we can optimize the investment in decarbonisation. And the end will be that for the Leendertse, we will create a blended value in risk premium, de-risking, and liquidity.
Great, Hunter.
Hunter Kuhlwein from the CRREM Foundation. We are providing decarbonisation pathways for the real estate industry, asset type and country type specific, and giving the benchmark for the industry.
Samantha.
Hi, good morning everyone. Samantha Rowland. I am founder and director of Healthcare Operational Living Advisors. Previously I worked for Savills for 22 years and then BNP Paribas Real Estate. I also am a valuer by trade, so I sit on the Global Valuation Standards Board and also co-wrote the valuation papers for independent healthcare properties.
Great, Vesa.
Yeah, good morning. Vesa Palander from City of Turku. I'm running the business and economic development activities at the city. Also have a team called Climate, Nature and Circular Economy. And Turku has been one of the front-runner cities in Europe in setting, for example, decarbonisation targets.
Great. There's a huge amount of different experience and different perspectives here. So the more we have an open conversation, I think, because you've all got really interesting points to bring. But Hunter, let's start with you just on the decarbonisation side. How are you seeing that? What are the key trends? What's driving it from your side? And then we can pick up on how others are part of that.
Well, what is driving the need for decarbonisation is climate change, I would say. So there's no... I mean, honestly, we've been talking about this topic for longer than I'm in this world. So the need is there. But the real estate industry didn't face this need over the last decades. We had a huge party, which was great. Champagne tasted nice. But in the end, we didn't care too much about the importance of abandoning fossil fuel combustion on site. And I mean, I've been talking yesterday to some investors, and they told me, well, yeah, but what should we do about the gas heating we just installed 5 to 6 years ago? And I'm looking at them and I'm saying, hey, this was a wrong investment. You need to face it at some point, and we need to be honest about it. And I think this is still something that lacks within this industry, that we still don't face the truth that we had a good party, which was great, but we didn't tackle the challenges over the last decade. So now the need is even higher. We need to decarbonize much quicker than we ever anticipated. Time's running out, carbon budget is running out, and yeah, we really need to tackle these challenges.
And we obviously want to look at the implementation of that. So then what is the role of benchmarking? What is the role of your business within that?
Well, we're not having a business, we're an NGO.
Well, an NGO, but...
well, we try to provide the benchmark on how fast the decarbonization needs to be within our industry. And we built a country and asset type specific benchmark. We're using global climate budget and downscaled from there with real life data from our 2020 benchmark. And we try to show how fast the average building of an asset in a country needs to decarbonize over time to meet Paris climate goals.
And of course, Joost, you're at the sort of sharp end of that in a way with solar power, with the energy part of that, which is a key part of decarbonisation, because if renewable energy can solve parts of those problems. So how important, I suppose, is also the CRREM pathway, those elements to really driving the implementation of this?
For the decarbonization and everything, I think the pittiness in the market, it is not so clear for landlords that we think the CRREM pathway is the starting point. Now that's the number, so you have a meter or something in the building. We are only talk about consumption decarbonization and not embedded, because that's another leak. But if you see the head meter of a building, and that's now 100, and the CRREM pathway will tell me or explain me in the basics how far this meter has to be going down. And that is the basic or the fundamentals of decarbonization ESG.
And how does circularity play its role there, Kathrin, would you say?
Yeah, it plays a huge
You may
role.
want to just take that a little bit, that's better.
Yeah, it plays a huge role, as half of the carbon put into air is put into air before someone actually moves into a new building. So 50% are the grey energy, and that's our main goal, to firsthand don't even demolish anything and thinking about building new, but building with that what is there and reusing existing building products and elements and materials like windows, bricks, steel beams. At the moment we see a really rise in demand from architects, public sector in reusing fire doors and all the high carbon building elements. That's really great to see. Like as I started 2 years with Concular, there was demand, but not that big. So I think the circular economy and really putting it into action with really going in buildings, looking what is there, making it transparent with products like apps or software that we build to really make it visible what is there. And oftentimes building owners really see first time what in good shape their material is indeed. So it's really a shift of perspective and valuing that what is already there. So we're really excited about the current transition of the thinking about circular economy, putting in action really now. Yeah.
And it would be interesting just to pick up from everybody, I think, just looking at the role of benchmarks, which allow there to be KPIs, which allow some of these implementations to happen. It'd be interesting to pick that up, maybe also from a city perspective and your side, because obviously there's the valuation side and how we play into that in terms of international standards. But Vesa, how do you see those kind of benchmarking? Does that help you as a city achieve the overall targets that you're looking to achieve?
Absolutely. I think because from the city's perspective, it's all about the alignment. I mean, we can do a lot of things as the city alone, but you get to get the corporations, small businesses, citizens on board as well. And you obviously always look for best practices, KPIs, something proven internationally. And I think that's the only way of doing it. No city, big or small, can invent it themselves. So super important.
Good. And Paul, what's your take on it?
So we had a breakthrough in the Netherlands 1.5 years ago. So the big banks decided that for every valuation in the Netherlands, you need a ESG report. An ESG report which is being based on a standard. Because a standard means that a non-specialist is able to assess the information, like a valuer or a bank or an investor. So standards like the Carbon Risk Real Estate Monitor are essential. And now the second phase of this Dutch standard of banks is being developed towards CRREM also. That's the next step, because you need to measure real carbon in the building. We also introduced circularity in the standard, but we're a little bit ahead of the game there. The banks are not yet there in the Netherlands. They will be, but there's really need for a clear standard on circularity. There's not yet. There's no real standard. Alas.
Totally agree. We definitely need to look at it as a whole, because we're now having the problem that funds tend to just buy newly builds, because these buildings are performing pretty good in terms of operational carbon. But of course, that's a trade-off. I think Olivier Lamine always told me the most carbon neutral building is the one that's never been built. So we need to definitely get more and more into the perspective of looking at circularity, looking at reusing our buildings that we already have, and also making this a business case on the other hand side. There are a lot of rumors or fake rumors out there about embodied carbon of retrofit, for example. I mean, a typical retrofit pays off in 3 to 5 years in terms of carbon. So if you look at the embodied carbon you put in with the retrofit and the operational carbon that you can save on the other hand side. So decarbonization in the real estate sector is not that difficult. It's about a little bit energy efficiency, heat pumps and district heating networks. And then we're almost getting there. So the playbook is easy. We just need to get it into action.
I just want to pick up with Sam first of all, Joost, and then Joost and Vesa, feel free to come in. But you've obviously you mentioned you've got the background in valuation. You're looking also at social impact and operations. So it would be interesting to see how you think the valuation piece is coming, both in terms of decarbonisation, but also, obviously, how do we create KPIs then from a social impact side as well?
I think you could have me talking about this for quite a long time, to be honest, Richard. I think one of the main challenges is very often we're all siloed in our capabilities. We don't always all speak together. When you're looking at strategies, looking at valuations, we've all got to talk, because your valuer is actually your knowledge bank. We can add value. We talk to the asset managers. We're not just the person that you engage with once a year or 4 times a year for that necessary evil of the quarterly or annual valuations. We're actually your communication tool. We can talk to the funders, we can talk to the investors, we can actually talk to the operators as well and the occupiers on how all the ESG implementation can actually enhance the property. It's sort of more of a real estate that can actually be repurposed and repositioned. It's not just a building. And quite often we're always accused, especially on the ESG front, of hitting the mark but actually missing the point of it.
Okay, good. Vesa, it would be interesting to pick up your perspective there from the city, both on, I suppose, the idea of how much of it is new build, how much you're looking at embodied carbon, for example, as a city.
Yeah, I was thinking about it from the implementation perspective, which was mentioned already a couple of times. We've been implementing climate budgeting since 2021. So every single euro in our 1.7 billion investment plan is climate checked. And I would say, everybody at the city level knows about it. We have about 120 partners in the climate ecosystem already. But when you really want to implement it on standalone real estate level, it comes down to management and leadership. Because if it's not really communicated or people lack the direction and the measurable goals, they're going to pick up the cheapest concrete actually when they make the implementation plans. And there is a huge gap between the climate politics and the visions and then the daily actions of employees of different organizations. And that's pretty much what we're facing. We've been already cutting down, the goal for this year is 75% reduction already and being carbon neutral by 2029. And they're great goals. And we've been on the track, on a track already for quite some years. But now it's those little things. How does the individual Turku citizen take care of the circular economy? There are great practices already, but now it's those little streams of implementation we need to take care of, and that's really the difficult one.
And does that also the same when you're looking at, for example, social initiatives within the city? Are you able to benchmark those as easily? Are you able to do is that an issue? Is it a challenge? Is it something that you've already solved as a city?
I wouldn't go that far that we have everything solved already. So the S is super important. We have actually some of the most segregated areas in city of Turku on Finnish level. So we have multiple programs and the problem challenge is pretty much about that sort of last mile implementation as well. So getting things done. And that's kind of fascinating at the same time. But we definitely have still some way to go. And
we've all been terribly polite. So we've all got microphones. Well, not quite. We were sharing one here. So do come in on any topic that you've got that you want to, because the time is short and we want to get as much content in as we can, really. So yes, Joost, start that ball.
Yeah. For me to say one thing is in the years I'm now busy in the research with the Magic Circle and finding out behind all the regulation what is doable, what is not doable in a technical way to construct renewable energy systems, is that we live in one Europe, but the regulation everywhere is so enormous, difficult, that that costs so much energy or so much money. If Europe really would like to have leader rule also in real estate, is less rules and only make it now clear. Finally, now the accountancy world is saying, as you said, because banks, you need an ESG report, otherwise your annual accounts will not signed off by an accountancy. This is the reason why all the big funds are now stepping in sustainability. And the first one already had his 25 million penalty, DWS, because of greenwashing. And now the stick is there. Everybody is running. But I can tell you, if we would like to decarbonize the assets what are there is no workforce. There is no enough solar panels, nothing to do. So there will be a lot of stranded assets. And that valuation, or how do you say it? Not the stranded asset, the de-risk of that amount of money is enormous. And that's hanging over the market.
So the implementation is going to be difficult?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Completely agree. I think we didn't value that in over the last years. No one really looked at it. And if I talk to a lot of investors, everyone's always telling me we cannot do this. This is technically unfeasible. And I'm asking them, okay, what's lacking here? What's the problem? And in the end, it's all about the money. And this is all about the valuation, because we thought our buildings are much more valuable than they really are. And that's some point where we really need to be, as a real estate industry, be honest to ourselves, where we really need to devaluate. And there were some points in time where I had various friends from different funds telling me in the same month, being like, "Hey Hunter, we're now also looking at operational carbon, and we're putting together a sales portfolio of our worst performing assets, and we're now selling them." And next friend also told me this, and I think I heard it in the same month from 2 or 3 friends. I was like, "Who are you going to sell this to, and for what price?" And this is where we as a real estate industry really need to face these fears. We need to at some point devalue our buildings and need to price in the decarbonisation, because that is risk. Climate risk is financial risk. And the need for decarbonisation, the need for retrofits is there. And we really need to get going, because time's running out. And we've been doing a lot of talking again over the last 5 years. But I didn't really see there are some highlight projects, what every investor gives out in a nice investment memorandum or whatever to talk about, but we really need high number of retrofits, high number of district heating systems in the city that need to decarbonize very quick. We need to connect all the buildings within dense populated areas to these district heating systems. Playbook is easy.
Okay, a lot to pick up. Sam, you wanted to come in on this, then Paul, then you, Joost. I could see it all building. And then you, and Kathrin, probably as well.
Echoing Hunter's comments, we are starting to see the attractiveness now, because people actually can afford to move into more modern buildings. They can afford the rent because they've got cheaper running costs. Are we capturing that data yet? Not really. Are we translating through to, I guess, attractiveness and yield longevity? We're starting to. But it's a slow process, and I'm totally echoing Hunter's comments that time actually is running out, and it'd be good to address this, hopefully, in this decade, rather than a bit longer.
Okay, great. Paul?
Maybe I have some good news, because, on the one side, regulation is horrible at the moment. What's happening in Europe and the lack of leadership there, that's not good. But I think the good news is some of the big banks are still very much looking at risks in terms of climate. So that's good. And I mentioned the example of the Dutch banks, for instance. I think in Germany also banks are looking at risk. And the second thing is that what we see is that especially in markets which are competitive, like the office market or industrial, not so much housing, but in those markets, the competitive markets, it's still a very important topic. So that's positive. That means change.
It's now given. I think ESG is really a given topic. It should be there, and it's not anymore what it was in fashion. It's now really given and embedded. And also, what I would like to say is what you said: the lack of leadership is. What I think is always difficult to see is I say one regulation, is the regulation about staircases. If you see the difference between office and housing and everything, so how can you, it's nearly not capable to retrofit buildings of the zoning regulation what it is. And only if you see staircases and the distance between window and building, between an office or a house. Why are so complex rules? Why you can make it more unity, how do you say it? Same rules for the same zoning? Yeah.
Kathrin, you wanted to come in on that, I think, and then it'd be interesting to get, because obviously cities play a major role as well in terms of planning, in terms of regulations, how those are delivered. So then it'd be interesting just to pick up on that, because you will also see challenges, because as you mentioned in a previous discussion we were having just now in the breakfast, was if it can't be implemented, it's just politics. It's not actually moving things forward. But how do you see it, Kat?
Yeah, maybe with the question to the public sector, what do you think you would actually need to put it more into action? Because we were dealing with it the last couple of years, and now we're seeing the fruits of kind of helping with research and writing handbooks and check boxes to how do we collect the material, how do we transform it, like putting new paint on and switching some parts and then bring it back into buildings. For us, maybe one point is it's the guarantee that we give for the product. So in Germany, it was everyone was scared of wow, is it legal? Is it even legal to put my own building products back in, like take it out and then 2 weeks later bring it back in? So there was a huge gap of knowledge around circular planning, the designing and building. So do you also see that in your space, the lack of actionable facts about circularity and grey energy?
I think yes and no, which is a really lame answer, obviously, but we have great examples where really happens and has been ongoing already for decades. For example, recycling of plastic bottles. I think over 95% of them get recycled in Finland. There's been a deposit system in place, so it makes sense to return them, and like everybody does it. And I mean, it's probably like the norm, the social norm. You have to fulfill. But then you have exactly, I mean, the opposite type of examples as well. And I think it's actually, so I've been thinking about the role of the city in multiple aspects I've been working for the public sector for 18 months. I'm a startup entrepreneur by nature, so I hate regulation. I hate the government involvement in pretty much everything. But obviously there has to be a balance. And I think from a city's perspective, it's really about that alignment. So how do we build the cultures of recycling the plastic bottles or whatever it is? Obviously, we have a lot of means in terms of construction permits, for example. So we have an emission target per square meter per annum. And we've been then, like I said already, we've been really trying to get the corporations to move. Meyer, for example, German shipyard, so they're building the biggest cruise ships in Finland, in Turku. And they plan to build a carbon neutral cruise ship by 2030. And if you think about cruise ship as by default, that's maybe not the first thing when you think about carbon denaturalization. So you can actually activate the other type of players, but then it has to be really a long-term strategy, which goes all the way down to those implementation practical examples for citizens and then businesses alike. So that's maybe the yes and no, actually. So really great examples, but then a lot of work still ahead.
Samia.
I think, well, this is more interactive, I'm afraid, so I'm going to ask the audience as well as my fellow panel members. But ESG and decarbonisation, green, has been around for a while. Why do we still fear it? Why aren't we actually implementing it? What's holding us back? Open to all to answer.
Lack of regulation in a way, and the problem is that everybody still holds on to what we've been doing over the last years, and everybody is just being like, okay, yeah, we will do it, but we will do it soon, someday in the future. And the problem here is that regulation is not there yet where it needs to be at some point. CRREM is showing what regulation would need to look like. And yeah, this is basically the definition of transition risk. The gap between what needs to happen and what is happening currently with current regulation. It's easy to adopt to regulation when the regulation is out there, because then everybody can read it in the news, and that's like the easiest task ever. You see what you need to do, and then you can value it in and do it. But you will never outperform. If you're an investor, you will never outperform. You will just swim with the market. You will never outperform the market. You will never outperform your peers if you just adopt to the regulation that's already in place and that's close to coming in place. So you need to be ahead of the wave. You need to be one of the first ones to do it. And there are actually just a few that are doing it. And of course, on the other hand side, hindering the industry as a whole with this slow movement towards, and with politics that are not in a place where they really do what needs to be done. And I think that's been the problem over the last 30, 40 years. We are not doing what needs to be done. No one is. And we're all just having a good time burning fossil fuels and earning money from it. And this is, in the end, like it's getting philosophical, but it's the problem here.
So someone needs to be brave and trailblazing then?
Sorry?
Does someone need to be brave and trailblazing?
I mean, I think you're seeing cities being trailblazing. I think you are seeing parts of it beginning to move. And is data playing a big role in this? I mean, feel free to pick that up. But I think one of the elements, when you're seeing new sectors evolve, for example, they don't get very far with international capital if there's not some transparency, there's not some data around it, because people aren't confident to invest. So if, for example, there is more data about what it is, so the CRREM pathway, I think, is an example of that, then people understand the data, then people go, right, I need to invest this to get this return, and then suddenly that unlocks a lot of the capital.
Exactly, we need reliability. I think, and this is what I was trying to say, like the regulation needs to be there and needs to tell the market this needs to be done to get to get to net zero by 2050. This is your pathway, this is what needs to be done. But we have the problem, or we're facing the problem, that we are going to introduce the EU ETS 2 in a year or so, 1.5 years time from now. Not even in the financial ministry in Germany. They don't even know what the price is going to be. So no one knows. And like this unreliability, this problem that no one knows, this is hindering capital to move towards where it needs to be invested. And I think we need to give clear guidance to the market. We need to, and this is aside from the regulator, that needs to be done. We need them to take action, or to say, hey, this is going to happen, and then the whole market can adopt.
Good. I'd be interested to get the city viewpoint on that, because cities can lead, I think, and then it's about that element of collaboration with, you've got the stakeholders, obviously, in terms of the residents, bringing them through that, the businesses that are in the cities, but also then you've got the real estate owners, of which, this is a large representation here at the fair, but there must be a way of collaborating with those, or do you find that difficult from a city perspective?
I think in the beginning, yes, but then it's when you get things done, I mean, then it becomes easier. And I think what we learned also is that because in Europe we tend to be so driven by the regulation. It's always the mantra. We've been repeating it in this panel already quite some time. And but when you cooperate with the businesses, the moment they realize that green transition can be a competitive advantage, they do it.
But when can it be a competitive advantage?
It's-
When we know that the regulation is going to come, and when the regulation finally comes into place, because this is the whole. We've been the talks and talks and talks. We've been doing this for 30 years and nothing happened.
I think, agree, partially. I mean, obviously, that's something you need at some point of time.
Yeah.
But I mean, good example from Finland. I mean, we were pretty dependent on the Russian oil and gas. In less than a year, I mean, everything completely changed because we had to do it. There was no regulation.
We are now using the fracking gas from the US.
I know. That's maybe one of the reasons I mentioned it. But,
And also, in fairness,
anyway.
Vesa's only been there for 18 months.
No. But I mean, if there is a reason to do it, and it can be business, I mean, obviously, sort of like force majeure is a bit different.
Yeah,
And
but
Hunter,
the reason was not because companies were like, well.
Does it really matter in the end, actually? I mean, the
it
result
does
is
matter. It does matter because the reason why we stopped using Russian gas was not because companies said, "Hey, it's a little bit better, and I don't like Putin that much. Let's move over to U.S. gas." The reason was that it was from a regulatory perspective that the states, that the EU did regulation on Russian gas and said we stop using the gas. This was government decisions, and
No, I definitely, I mean, see those points. I think what I was actually getting to is that now companies and industries in Finland, they realize that clean energy in 2030s can definitely be a competitive asset for Finland. We're far away from everything, and you need to find these things. And obviously, I mean, they're not doing it because it's for the good for the humankind only. I mean, there has to be other type of drivers, regulation being one of them. But I mean, what I was really saying or trying to say is that from the city's perspective, when you have the climate policy, which we've been exercising since 2009, and there's been hiccups, there's been challenges and wrong decisions and whatnot. But actually, when you keep on doing it, and you involve other ones, citizens, businesses, everybody, they start to see the light. They start experimenting, elaborating, and then you get some results. We're still far away from reaching the 2029 target of being completely carbon neutral.
Hunter, I just want to bring Paul in for a second, and then we can come back to that. Paul.
I just want to make a remark also towards Hunter. I mean, don't be too pessimistic. I think CRREM is doing a great job. And if I look at, for instance, the office market, I mean, most of the investors in the office market are now looking to CRREM as their benchmark if they look into buying an office building. So I think some progress is being made, but it's being made by, you know, financial the financial side. I mean, it's business observations which are now really driving the market, not regulation from the government. That's lacking.
Because it creates financial risk, which therefore investors, asset owners then need to address, because otherwise their assets are going to have limited value. So that creates that push to drive it forward, I think.
Yeah.
Sam, what's your...
I was going to say, I think not often enough do we actually share the good news stories. We often share the what ifs, what we should do. We don't actually celebrate the successes. And in the UK, in both the healthcare and senior living sectors, we are seeing repurposing of buildings. We're seeing things be reused, and again ticking all those ESG boxes, but looking at green energy and energy efficiency as well, which actually translates through to, for the healthcare and senior living sectors, quality of life for the occupiers.
Yes, good. There's about 3 minutes left. So I'm going to what I'd be interested to get, and it may take more than 3 minutes, but we'll allow that, that's fine, which is, we can sense frustration, Hunter, and that's good, and passion, and that's also good. What do we hope that we can achieve in a year then? Let's not set too big a goal, but what can we achieve in a year? Where do we think we'll be if we have this same conversation next year, it won't be the same conversation. But what will have moved on? What can we achieve in that time? Let's start, Kathrin, with you, and then we'll work our way down, and then we'll be able to check it next year. Kathrin.
I would wish grey energy put into the CRREM part. That would be my.
It's more than a year's project.
But that would be my vision.
A huge project.
And maybe a second wish, 10 to 20% reuse in every project that is built new, and maybe around 5% reuse in refurbishment projects. Some benchmark that it establishes it on its own around circularity, and coming from like intrinsic motivation, because it's also saving a lot of money to reuse what you possess already. So, yeah.
Great. Okay, so good benchmarks for circularity to be included.
Benchmarks that establish on their own force somehow.
So in the Netherlands, in a year's time, we'll have a new pathway for banks, which implements also CRREM, with so CO2 levels in buildings are being measured. That will be achieved.
I would like to say that the RECS has now finally in the Red Book the new 7 points of ESG evaluation. What I'm hoping is that the evaluators from the Big Four now finally is not reflecting the market, but they have the guts to set the market in ESG evaluation. And I hope that will be achieved in a year.
Okay, great.
I hope that on an asset level we finally get things going. I think we can report the shit out of it. We can keep on reporting, write another report, put another 100-pager. But what needs to be done is taking action on a building level, on an asset level. And I hope to see a lot more of these projects in the next year.
Good. Sam?
Thanks. Definitely embrace the change, but I think also from a valuation perspective, we actually like rewarding and actually putting good figures on, not just always the sort of negative figures. However, we have got a duty of care and responsibility. So there's got to be a balance between rewarding those that need rewarding and applying caution on those that do need some holding back.
Okay, good.
I wish we can share new initiatives, steady progress on getting close to our 2029 goal. Those including getting close to 100% in renewables in our district heating and cooling system. Hopefully 30-40 more business partners in the program, and roughly I would say 75 to 80% reduction in CO2 emissions compared to 1990.
Great. Really interesting. If we achieve all of those things in a year, I will be delighted as well, and we will certainly report on it in impact. Thanks very much for sharing your views. Thank you to everybody for being here. Thank you to everybody also for joining us online, and join us in thanking the speakers. Thank you, everybody.